Hey guys, welcome back to Joey Talks. My name is Joey, and this is where we talk about mental health for the everyday person. On today's episode, I wanted to share an experience I had with you. I know some of you have been following along my ketamine journey, and today I wanted to bring on some of the people who have made that happen from BetterU that have walked me through the process and have been there. I've had such an incredible experience with this company, and I know a lot of you are really curious and interested about how you too can get involved with it. So Derek and Dr. Zand, welcome to Joey Talks.
Thank you, Joey, and really appreciate you allowing us to be a part of your healing journey. Something that's helped me tremendously. Sam's been working with the medicine for years, and every time I get to connect with somebody and see how much it's helped them, it's really something special.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, first, I just want to get started off with, even though I've done a video on this before, I think a lot of people are just curious, what is ketamine, and where did it come from, and what is it used for in the context in which you guys, administer it?
Yeah, I'll dive into that one. And thanks again, Joey, for having us on and the awareness that you're bringing to all of this type of work. So appreciate that. When it comes to ketamine, we've had this drug in the market for 50 plus years, and it was originally FDA approved as an anesthetic at really high doses. It was used in operations, procedures, things like that. And what we found, actually, the way that psychiatry caught wind of this is that in the Vietnam War, when we were treating soldiers who were wounded, they found that looking back, those who were treated with ketamine for their procedures had less kind of PTSD-like outcomes. And they thought there's got to be something here. So a lot of research was put into it. And I think what we've arrived to as a community is to realize that the benefits of ketamine are actually very similar to a lot of the psychedelic medicines that are plant-based as well, like psilocybin and such, where we're increasing neuroplasticity. We're able to increase the brain's ability to make new neural connections. And really all that means is we're left feeling more flexible afterwards. Our mindset is more open and malleable. We're able to see new perspectives and not hold on so rigidly to some patterns that may not be serving us well. So that's the origin of ketamine. And 4 years ago, it got FDA approved, a form of it called S-ketamine. It got FDA approved for treatment-resistant depression. And that's when the mental health community really stepped up again recently, just in the last few years, to utilize this much more often. And that led to our journey, Derek and I, creating this company to help increase the access, convenience, and lower the cost for these treatments for people who need it.
Yeah, that's kind of what drew me to you guys initially. I had my eye on ketamine for over 2 years. I've suffered with depression, major depressive disorder, since I was very young, like 9. And have been on multiple, antidepressants, have done everything proactive that I could, exercise, trying to do meditation, be more mindful, eating well, all those things, and still was having a hard time. And so I wanted to do it, but looked into it, and it was very expensive. The only thing I found at the time were infusions. And so just kept searching around the internet until I found you guys 2 years after I started my process of trying to get it done. And really glad I did. I would, one thing that I would say that I got out of the treatments that has remained consistent is a constant state of awareness. Like, I am able to remain in more of an objective role. Like you were saying, some of those thought patterns, whereas before I felt like I was stuck in them, like I was in the middle of them and I could not break out of them. Now, when similar situations happen or I have a similar trigger in my life, I'm able to remain kind of above it and kind of observe it, and which gives me a lot more sense of control. So that is definitely something that I've seen. Now, one of the questions I get a lot on my channel is, and from friends, honestly, they think that the effects of ketamine are just from like having a trip, but that isn't the case. Like, there's also neurological or biological, I don't know how to exactly say it, effects of ketamine. So what are some of those effects that give us that neuroplasticity? Obviously you do trip, but that's not the totality of it.
Yeah, I can speak on the scientific part, and then maybe Derek can kind of share his story and how it's helped him as well. Scientifically, we see kind of 2 ways that this medicine helps us. Ketamine can help neurologically through what we talked about, is that neuroplastic change, where the brain function improves. Our brain is able to process things in a way where we're not just reactive, we're not stuck, as you talked about, Joey, kind of being the passenger in our life, but rather being the observer of our life and making the decision. That neurological benefit is something that our patients get regardless of the dose. You don't even have to trip, right? It can be a lower dose where you have more of a meditative experience, but the neurological reset still happens. And many people equate it to, you're carving down these ski slopes. If you can think of being on a mountain, and every time you carve the same slope, it gets deeper. And that's what we do with our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors. When we practice the same ones, we're just carving deeper, and it becomes hard to crawl out of that path. And so ketamine is like what many say, fresh powder for the ski slopes of the brain, so that we can start anew and choose the new pathways. And so that's what's happening neurologically, with or without a trip. Psychologically, the second benefit is that if we do have more than just a meditative experience out of it, but sometimes a little bit of a psychedelic experience, then many of our patients have looked back and said, wow, I had this breakthrough realization, this aha moment, that if I wasn't pulled out of my own normal state of consciousness, I probably wouldn't have noticed as quickly. When I do this work, I do a lot of talk therapy. I could go 5 months with a client, and we're just really struggling to see some new insights and learn some new perspectives. But then they do a ketamine treatment, and it just clicks. It's almost like 5 months of therapy we've compounded into just one session, because we're more open-minded. And so that's the psychological benefit in addition to the neurological benefit.
And yeah, and to go off of what Sam said, it's like when you look at, so there's kind of two versions, right? Well, there's the racemic ketamine, which is done in office with IMs, IVs, and also it's what's compounded for that at home. So that's not FDA approved. That's prescribed off-label, and decades of research supports the benefits of that. Then there's Spravato, which is Johnson & Johnson. It's a molecule. It's a kind of a derivative of ketamine, and that's S-ketamine. And part of that program is like it's at a lower dose, and the side effects is that dissociation, or the side effect is a psychedelic experience, right? So which means in their studies that the efficacy of the medicine isn't related to the level of dissociation. So even at those low doses, and even if you're just reaching that kind of meditative state, you're still getting the benefits on a neurobiological level. It's like that fertilizer for the brain, right? And it allows us to carve those new thought patterns. And when we look at almost any situation in life, whether it's personal, financial, relationships, anything, almost anything can be solved or alleviated with a shift in perspective. So when we take that kind of vacation from our normal thought patterns and step away and kind of get that macro view on what's going on in our life, and that shift in perspective, that's what's really profound. And that's where we're seeing a lot of the healing take place is from that aspect of it.
Yeah, I must say, my advancement in my therapy, I've been in therapy for 5 years, and my therapist had never had anyone that had participated in ketamine therapy. So she was also very intrigued, and she was also very impressed because she knows the patterns I was stuck in, and we had been working on those for quite a while. And the ability that it gave me to have those breakthroughs was very evident to her. But I agree in the sense of, and I know you guys kind of train patients who do this with your company, to really encourage them to work with a therapist or have someone that can walk you through that. And I have seen the benefit to that, because for me, it was a lot of emotions that came up that were connected to my childhood, emotions of wonder, of like immense love, things along those lines, that really, it was interesting because it was combined with other visuals or other thoughts coming up. And it really brought a lot, what I would say were suppressed or like subconscious things going on in the back of my head that I never paid attention to. And so all that combined, talking with my therapist, I saw so much relief and advancement, and it has stuck with me. It wasn't just like a temporary thing, but that it's continual. I'm building on it continually. I'm curious about BetterU. Obviously, I was so happy when I found it, not only because I could do it at home, which to me was a great, benefit, as well as the affordability of it and the convenience of it all was incredible. And then I know I've said this to you many times, Derek, but I was just so impressed with the customer care. I don't even want to say customer service because that's not really what it was. It was care. Like people were constantly checking in on me. And if I text back, like through text message, if I text back, I would get a answer within 30 minutes or so, and I really did feel taken care of throughout the whole process. I think that's one of the biggest hesitancies from people when they think about at home is like, I'm just going to be left here by myself to administer ketamine. So maybe talk a little bit about what that process is, how you guys are able to make it more affordable and more accessible for people.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joey, thank you for your kind words. And it's something that when we're building this, it's like making sure that people have these touch points and making sure that the communication is there, because as with any type of psychedelic medicine, they can be just as harmful as they are therapeutic, right? And going into an office, like I think I told you earlier, when I went in for my first session, it was $1,500 for one session. So it was in 2019, which is not affordable. There was no treatment preparation. Afterwards, I had this, I went from suicidal and mentally rock bottom to releasing all this anger, shame, blame, guilt, these cycles I was digging myself deeper into. And all I wanted to do was talk to somebody and unpack it. And that wasn't an option there. So our integration coaches, which range from veterans to therapists to all kinds of different people that have found this type of healing to really help them and have helped others, along these journeys, is really giving access to somebody that not only help you kind of digest and process that experience, but then looking at what are our daily habits, right? Looking at what are our goals from this type of treatment, and then setting those and having somebody that you can be accountable to. And I think all of those parts and one-on-one treatment preparation, the virtual treatment preparation, I think having these one-on-one experiences outside of just the clinical piece of it is incredibly important, and making it more accessible. Sam, he's been treating patients in office since 2019. Also, when it was more expensive with Spravato, with IV, IM, and started treating patients at home, and started to see, as with the set and setting is so important. And when you're in a doctor's office, you're in typically a sterile environment or an unfamiliar environment, and then after when you're done, it's like, all right, now your brain goes from this disconnected, dissociative state back into your executive mode network where you're task oriented, and you're like, all right, I have to get in my car, I have to get an Uber, I have to get home, and kind of pulls you away from that hour or so after, when you're returning to your baseline, to really reflect and digest on it. So I think doing it at home is tremendous for those that it's right for. It's not right for everybody. And Sam, we talk a little bit about in-office treatments and kind of the difference in pricing, medical supervision, and those types of things.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. I think it was so intentional, and I'm so proud of the team, Derek, on the care side that is non-clinical, right? They're not licensed therapists or licensed psychiatrists, but they're people who've been through this and have had the in-house training from our medical team to show up, to be there. That's the program model when it's being done online, virtually. We also do it in office, and some people, they realize, my home is not a place for healing. It's chaotic. It's tough to give myself 2-3 hours of alone time in my house. So for those people, it's great to come into the office, and we try to make it as warm and inviting as possible. Come lay on the couch in the recliner chair and have the same experience in a place that we can maybe control the settings a little bit better. But for most people, we find that home is that place for healing, right? And they can find that kind of cocoon of warmth. Another thing that really comes up is, it's interesting how we're talking about this mental health treatment, because in the past, just 4 years ago, it's like, all right, well, here's your medicine, you take it and you kind of forget about it, right? And that's it. Yeah. But now this is much more experiential. There's a lot more self-work being put into this process. And that's what I love about this modality, because we're teaching everyone how to heal themselves. And so while it is so helpful to have a professional therapist, to have the psychiatric providers that we offer, I think the ultimate goal for everyone involved is to not need us anymore, right? And to just realize that all we need is ourselves. And teaching those tools is really what we're about, so that eventually we don't need to be even relying on ketamine or anything. We can just find that healing, that growth, that love within.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I actually just had a really good friend of mine who lives in Chicago, and he wasn't comfortable with doing it at home. He was too nervous about the whole thing. So he actually did go to a inpatient treatment facility. I don't know what you call it, office. And he just did it yesterday. He's blowing up my phone today, wanting to tell me all about it. So yeah, I totally get that. People have different preferences, and obviously mine was to do it at home. I love my home. I always have my dog next to me. I know that that may not be the best thing, but he's very calm and peaceful. So I have my whole routine now of like the what I do and how I, make it inviting and comfortable and all of that. So I know, yeah, it is up to people's personal preference. Go ahead.
Sorry, I wanted to touch on what Sam said as well. With people are so used to, and something that we run into a lot with people is that they're so used to, when you're going through depression or anxiety or PTSD or anger issues, that you go to the doctor and they say, take this pill, you'll get better, right? And really, there's no magic pill out there that's going to replace, sunshine, movement, daily habits, sleep. So being able to really reinforce, our program and reinforce what our lifestyle protocols are, because people would call us during the pandemic and say, "I just had the best day ever," right? Or "I just had the best week ever," and then that's amazing. And now let's dive into, when's the last time that you were outside in the sun? How often are you sweating? Each week. And during the pandemic, people a lot of times say, "I haven't been outside in a week," or "I haven't been outside in a couple of weeks." There's no magic pill that exists that's going to replace the basic necessities that we need as human beings to fill our cups and to be able to bring that love back into the world. So I think having that really structured approach and guidance and accountability along with this medicine to help us instill new, healthier habits while we're in that heightened state of neuroplasticity, while our brains are more malleable, being able to now take a lot of those exercises, traditional therapeutic exercises like CBT and psychodynamic things, and positive affirmations, gratitude, and all these incredible things. And it's a great time to reinforce that in our brain so we can kind of cement those healthier habits.
Yeah. Yep. And to your point, one thing I like to share with people all the time is I've been on so many different psychiatric medications. None of them have really done any good for me except for Lexapro. It's the only one I've had any success with. And then after a while, the effects of that have wore off and now I'm not on it anymore. But what I found with ketamine is that I was able to actually process so much stuff that I had suppressed or not wanted to face, or maybe it was too painful for my mind to face. And I was able to face that during the ketamine treatments or, right after. And so there was a sense of completion or working towards resolving some of these open wounds or things that I was trapped in, which I never found with the normal psychiatric stuff. It always just felt like a Band-Aid, like, let's reduce your anxiety levels. Let's try to improve your mood by giving you a little more dopamine or serotonin or whatever it is. And so I definitely have seen that effect as well. And I think that is another thing that really stands out in my mind, that this isn't just another quote unquote Band-Aid, but it really does enable you especially when you do combine it with talking it through with someone else, other lifestyle changes and all of that, it is raising your self-awareness, like Dr. Sands said. And I think that is really important. It's more holistic in its approach.
Yeah. And if I can touch on that a little bit too, Joey, thank you for sharing that. For you, like, you've been through what the doctor prescribed, right? Like, you followed the treatment, you did what was recommended. You even said that, like, your whole lifestyle is all about being healthy, and none of that was enough, right? We still weren't feeling the way we wanted to feel. So that's where we see this as that kind of mental lubricant to really help those who maybe, if they're already practicing good habits, now all of a sudden we're going to a deeper layer to soothe the subconscious, to soothe the soul. And if we've done that work and we haven't done the healthy habits, well, let's get to that too, right? All of it matters. And we're hopefully getting past the stage where if you're going to seek mental health support, it's not confusing. It's not something that's, an indication that there's something wrong with you or that you're weak. There's a lot of shame in this space that doesn't need to be there. And I think it's just a sign that we're just trying to be our truer self. We're trying to be our more authentic self and learn more about ourselves. We're moving from that Band-Aid approach that you talked about, which unfortunately this was our kind of trial and error industry. Try this med, it doesn't work, try this med. We're moving away from that. And now we're moving more towards self-exploration and finding harmony and balance in our own lives.
Yeah.
And this not being a daily thing as well, right? It's doing these sessions once, maybe twice a week, typically, around once a week, and being able to take that time to check in with ourselves and spend that quality time with ourselves, and quiet that internal chatter or those internal voices, and take a breather from it, and really like with these type of sessions, especially at home. It's we like to structure them as a ritual or ceremony, for yourself, and really create this safe space of nurturing and healing, and create this, this time where it's really just focusing on you, and bringing a lot of that beauty and a lot of those things that we're holding inside to the surface. Joey, when you were doing your sessions, did you ever feel increased sense of connection to yourself and to the outside world?
Oh yes, absolutely. Definitely to myself. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's words to describe it. My friends would always ask me, and I'm like, I can't really put it into words, which I'm usually not short on words, but I was just like, I just feel so connected. Like I feel like people talk about an inner child. I feel so unified with that inner child that's in me. So, and I feel caring and compassionate and graceful towards him. And so there is a lot of like expansive love that comes out of the experience, from what I've experienced. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. So we're going to wrap up here in the next few minutes, but I do want to ask the number one question everyone always wants to know is about safety. How safe is ketamine? Obviously, to do it at home. Some people get nervous about that. It sounds like people hear the word psychedelic or trip and they're like, what the heck? What is this? So yeah, how safe is it?
Yeah. And, that's a very serious thing to talk about safety, because not only are there some real parameters to gauge, but our sense of safety is so important too. If we don't feel safe, then we probably shouldn't do the treatment. We actually did a study retroactively. We surveyed a random 100 patients that we've seen, and we asked a bunch of questions. And the one that really stood out the most was 100 out of 100 said they felt safe during this experience. That's really, I think, what we're after. So let's talk about it. The potential side effects. Things that are, limited within the session, right? It lasts maybe an hour or 2 hours, for some 3 or so. And once the medication fades away after that hour or two, you shouldn't feel these side effects. But it can bring up a little bit of nausea and upset stomach. For that reason, we usually prescribe Zofran. It's an anti-nausea medication to be taken before. It can increase blood pressure. So this is very important. If someone has uncontrolled high blood pressure, they're not a good candidate for the treatment, because while someone who's healthy and has controlled blood pressure, 10-20 point spike for an hour or two doesn't hurt us at all. For someone who maybe already has high blood pressure, that can be dangerous. So that needs to be monitored, and we send a blood pressure monitor and have that checked before every treatment. Further, there is that dissociative quality. And while, we claim that we try to educate that there's benefit both the low dose and the high dose. They're different experiences. One's more of a meditation enhanced experience, and one's a little bit more of that psychedelic, pseudo psychedelic experience. But at that higher dose, we definitely get a little bit weak and wobbly. And so physically, it's so important to have somebody there for you in case you need to get up and go to the bathroom. The most dangerous thing is an accidental fall. And so we want to just build precautions for that. Other than that, all of the safety studies long-term, following once a week or so, have shown no long-term health risks that were different than placebo, which is 3 to 4 years out following patients who've done this, tremendous data. And so that helps people understand this isn't going to cause any long-term problems. And short-term, those problems are limited, and we just need to build precautions for them.
And looking at when somebody comes through our program, so we have the initial free consultation, and they go through a lot of the contraindications there, which is cardiovascular, cardiac issues, AV malformation, a history of aneurysm, a recent heart attack or stroke, currently pregnant or breastfeeding, and there's a couple of other ones that they'll screen out during that, and then the clinicians also have go through a lot of a medical assessment and go through medical history and try to make sure it's the right fit. Right, it's not the right fit for everybody, but for the ones it's we've seen really tremendous growth and transformations. And when people are doing at home, and a lot of, I'd say most people, probably 90% plus, they've come to us have never had any type of psychedelic experience. So like if you're in office It's typically started at a much higher dosage because you're in a controlled setting. There's medical supervision there. When we do it at home, we start at a low dose and we do dose acclimation. So it helps us not only the medicine acclimate to our bodies, but it also helps us throughout the next week, the next 2 weeks. We're getting that low dose benefits, and it helps us really adjust to what the feeling is going to be like. Because it's people hear the word psychedelic, right, and they think this could be 6 hours, 8 hours, like other traditional psychedelics like psilocybin or LSD or those types of things. And it's a big commitment and can be very scary. And ketamine is a very gentle psychedelic where the sessions will last from 45 to 60 minutes, sometimes 90 minutes, and that's kind of when you're deeper in the experience. And after that, we ask you to lay down for another hour or so and just reflect. Don't have the TV on and have your journal or voice recorder out and really just kind of process any new aha moments or epiphanies or shifts in perspective that came up during it. And sometimes if those don't happen during the experience, that's okay. A lot of times we talk to people, how are you feeling the next day, the following days? And a lot of times people say, increased motivation, increased energy, and a lot more clarity. It's almost like clearing out the cobwebs in the brain.
Yep. That was my recent experience. I hadn't done a treatment in a month and I was getting very cloudy in my head. I felt depressed and I did a ketamine treatment, and literally the next day, it was like the best day of the year. I felt so clear-minded. I felt motivated. I felt positive. I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. So it definitely, and then that, continued to last. And there were things that were bothering me that I wasn't aware were bothering me, but during that treatment, they came to mind and I was able to process those and talk to my therapist and the whole thing. So yeah, it's definitely effective and I love it. So if people do want to get a free consultation or they're really interested, where can they go and how does that process work?
Yeah, so just go to our site, betterucare.com, and that's the letter U. And you can click Get Started, take assessment, or go to the pricing page. And there's also a calendar link there to schedule your free assessment. We are working on creating an app in the next in the coming weeks, and we're really excited about the app because then A, you'll be able to just download it in the App Store. B, it's going to have everything from your nutrition logging, your habits logging, really gating the content. So after you complete this, it'll unlock this and having specific modules. Right now, as you know, in the member portal, it's a lot of information, right? So if somebody's specifically coming to us for situational, if there's a loss of a loved one or recent loss of their career change or recent trauma, like these different things, like we're going to have specific modalities, or specific modules that are aligned. We're going to have specific modules that are aligned for these types of things. So being able to drop that in and have a much more interactive experience with your entire care team. So from the person that you had your consultation with, to your integration coach, to your psychiatric clinician, and having a more well-rounded approach. And we're also going to be bringing therapists into the platform as well. So a lot more visibility, and you'll be able to journal in the app and then share that with your integration coach as well, if you'd like to.
Oh, I love that. That'll take it to another level, man. Because already your team is so caring. Like that's it. Not just like the practicality, but every interaction I've had with someone on the phone or whatever, they're so caring, which is so appropriate for what's going on. You know what I mean? You're dealing with very sensitive and intimate, information, like people's lives. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, and we'll link that below, betterucare.com, so you guys can get to that site easily. Dr. Zand and Derek, thank you for coming on today. I'm sure we could talk for a lot longer because there's so much to talk about. But for now, I guess this would be it. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, Joey. Thank you so much for your time. And thank you. Your videos are fantastic and they're so educational and insightful. And yeah, just really grateful to be a part of your journey.
Awesome.
Yeah, really appreciate your advocacy and love seeing your growth. And hopefully this has helped educate a lot of others as well.
Sweet. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, guys, if you want to take that free consultation, go ahead to the link below in the description. Also, if you want to check out my ketamine playlist, I actually recorded one of my ketamine sessions where you can kind of experience it with me. You can find that in this link somewhere up here that I'll post. And if you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to have you come along for the ride. Again, my name is Joey. This is Joey Talks, where we talk about mental health for the everyday person.